everyone, it's your boy Luke, here for our DFS value picks at this week's Genesis Invitational. Here in this video, we're going to be covering my top 6 value plays on the slate, priced $7,500 and below on Draftkings, to help you guys save some salary in your lineups and spend up for an extra stud or two. The goal here, of course, is to try and find some of those diamonds in the rough, some of the guys that might not be coming in with the best recent form, might not have any form of late, but might be good course fits. Whatever the reason is, these are players with high floors, but also high ceilings to take down some of these GPP contests. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. Alright guys, on the screen you can see our projections for this week, and of course if you're looking for direct access to these, you guys know where to find them. That is on my Patreon page, just $1 for the month for golf, one of the best deals across the industry, so I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. Either way though, first value pick for this week is going to be Luke List, somebody who we faded last week, didn't have the best week. Of course we ended up hitting him at the Farmers, and I'm on him once again. This is also a perfect course fit. You have the Poa Anua greens, which he tends to do his best on for his career. You can see losing just 1/10 of a stroke per roundabout, which for him is excellent. He's typically closer to a half a stroke per round loser in terms of the flat stick. Some of the other recent metrics, of course, with the win in there, they're going to look great. He's gaining over half a stroke per round on approach. In fact, 2/3 of a stroke per round on approach. Off the tee, gaining nearly half a stroke per round. That's what we're used to seeing from Luke List, particularly when he's playing his best golf. He's one of the best ball strikers in the world, one of the best tee to green players in the world, period. You can see he's also gaining around the green. Of course, the one bugaboo, the punting, but he's done more than enough to make up for it with the ball striking stats of late. And in terms of a course fit, he is a picture perfect fit. Let's go over here to the key stats. Again, if you haven't already seen the core plays or the course breakdown, we've already gone over this, but he's an excellent around the green player. We've already shown that. He's gaining over half a stroke per round on approach. Driving distance, he's one of the longer players on tour. And of course, if there's one surface that he can get by with the flat stick, it's Poa Anua. So I absolutely love the pick this week. He's somebody who's also going to be a little bit lower owned because of the fact that he didn't have a good performance last week. That's something that happens week in and week out with PGA DFS. After players have a disappointing performance, particularly as chalk, like Luke List was, they end up being severely under-owned the next week. So I like him at $7,400. You can see he's a top 15 recent form rank for the field, top 10 fit at Riviera, overall a top 10 total model rank as well. Next up, we're going to be talking about Thomas Pieters at that same price tag. You can see he comes in as the number 2 play across the board. And note, that is not a mistake there. First and foremost, this guy has 2 wins out of his last 5 starts on the European Tour. The rest of them, the other 3 starts, were top 25s. This guy's on absolute fire. You can argue that there's no hotter player on the entire world, and at this golf course specifically, has a ton of good history, and it hasn't been all that recent. He didn't play last year or the year before, but he has 2 second-place finishes at the Genesis Invitational, so absolutely loves this golf course. And if we just consider the game that he has, it makes a whole lot of sense why you'd want to play him here. He's a bomber off the tee. We've seen plenty of longer players win at Riviera before. He's also a very solid approach player. And if there's any part of his game where he kind of, doesn't do his best, it's with the putter, right? And that's why you see over here the shots gained putting on Poa Anua, minus 2.24 strokes around. That's because it's a tiny sample size. A lot of the rounds for the Genesis Invitational, we didn't have the shots gained metrics for a Thomas Pieters because they were, frankly, before that was really a huge thing. A lot of the databases out there weren't calculating the shots gained metrics back in 2016, 2018. You could do it retroactively, of course, if you buy access to all that data, you can get that. But in terms of this data, this is over the last year, which I believe it's 2 measured rounds for Thomas Pieters, where he ended up missing a cut on Poa Anua. So that's why it looks that bad. But if you take a look at some of the shots gained metrics, I believe over the last 50 rounds, we should at least have something on them. Let's see. Yeah, we do. So over the last 50 measured rounds, we're gaining over 1/3 of a stroke per round off the tee, over 3 strokes per round on approach. I mean, that's really why you're seeing him pop so much right here. And of course, around the green, he's keeping it together. The one bugaboo of his game has been that putter. But internationally, over this last month or so, where he has those 3 wins, he's been putting lights out. That's why he's really taken his game to the next level. And if he can continue that over here in the States, he could, just like a Garrett Higo, who went on the same type of role on the European Tour, come over to America and just parlay that into his first PGA Tour victory, which would be absolutely huge for Thomas Pieters. He's finished twice at second at this event. I mean, just tons of good vibes going for Thomas Pieters. So I love him at $7,400. He'll probably be chalky this week just because of all that course history, because of the wins internationally, but I think that's more than warranted. Next up, we're going to be discussing Maverick Mcnealy at $7,200. In terms of the recent form, he certainly didn't have the best showing last time out. That was when we faded him. He was in that $9,000 range. Ended up making the cut, but was far from optimal. So I think a lot of people have spoiled on McNealy. I don't expect him to be very chalky this week, even though he's only $7,200. There's quite a few pivots in this range that I think people will be willing to go to a little bit more. Christian Bezainhout, Sibu Kim, even Adam Hadwin, who's been on an absolute roll. Or, of course, the upper 6K range, which is also full of some pretty solid names. But McNealy, there's no doubting his upside here. He's a perfect course fit. So let's go ahead and take a look at the shots gained metrics just to give you an idea. And this is over the last 24 measured rounds. This is not cherry picking his best stats by any means. In fact, if we go to the last 50 measured rounds, which we'll do here in a second, some of the categories start to look even better. But he's gaining nearly a third of a stroke per round on approach, which for Maverick Mcnealy is excellent. If he can continue that going forward, that is going to be extremely useful. He's gaining off the tee with his driving distance, which we're used to seeing. He gets it out there a good 310, 315 yards. Around the green, hasn't looked that great, but historically, McNealy a much better around the green player than what we've seen. In fact, his first few years on tour, that was like the only shots gained category where he was gaining significantly. One year he actually gained 0.4 shots gained around the green per round, which is excellent. That's an elite type number. So I do expect that to rebound here at some point. And the putting has been very average. McNealy's known for that putting prowess, particularly on Poa Nua, where for his career, he's one of the best players in this field. In fact, gaining 2/3 of a stroke per round on the Poa Nua surface. So if he can return to that type of form on the greens, he's been excellent off the tee, excellent on approach as well. Historically, also really solid around the green. I don't see a hole in his game this week. He's very comfortable on these West Coast type of swings. And just to give you an idea of the last 50 measured rounds to show you what I was talking about, I mean, look at the off the tee numbers. They gain significantly. They go up significantly, close to half a stroke per round. The around the green gets a little bit better. The putting right around where we saw it before, so that is actually slightly concerning. I mean, in years past, he had been close to a third of a stroke gained per round at the very least. And on Poa Nua, we've seen that for his career. So if he could rebound in that one category, get back to the mold that we know McNealy being, he's going to be one of the best plays on the slate. Next up, our next value play is going to be Erik van Rooyen at $7,000. And he seems to be a little bit of a forgotten man. We haven't seen him play very often since the fall. Of course, he had a child. I think that has a lot to do with it. Obviously, after you have a child, you want to spend time at home, right? Obviously, have some of that home time. Take advantage of that time of your life because it only happens once, and I don't blame him. The fact of the matter is, he looked like a completely different player towards the end of 2021. Obviously, broke through for that victory, and then in the playoffs, torched it up against the best competition on tour. This is something that people had been waiting for. EVR is an extremely talented ball striker. It's like readily apparent when you watch him play. I mean, his irons are absolutely spot on. He's also relatively long off the tee, and if there's anything that he doesn't do well, it's the accuracy off the tee. And here at Riviera, you can kind of get away with being an inaccurate driver. I mean, we've seen some of the more inaccurate drivers on tour win at this event. But just to give you an idea of why I really like him this week, if we go into some of the advanced metrics, and again, this isn't recent at all. He's hardly played. We don't have any shots gained metrics for him of any recent tournaments, but he's still gaining off the tee from what we have. He's gaining on approach. And of course, with the putter, slight gainer as well. The one issue I think I was looking at the wrong line there, but you get the point. I think it's the same exact profile. Gaining. He's losing a little bit more on a putter than Carlos Ortiz because I thought I was looking at the wrong line there. It's the same type of profile though, right? For his career, EVR, much better on Poa Nua than he is other surfaces. He's gaining nearly a quarter of a stroke per round. So if he could bring that ball striking that we saw towards the end of 2021, where he was gaining across the two ball striking categories, if he can return to the putter that we're used to seeing on Poa Nua, he's going to be in a very good position to succeed this week. If we take a little bit of a more deep approach on a EVR, you'll see that the numbers actually get better. He's closer to a third of a stroke gained per round on approach. Again, that ball striking prowess is readily apparent. And of course, with the putter, you see the putter goes positive. So it's not like we're used to seeing him lose with the putter. So over these last 24 measured rounds, which again, were a long time ago, I'm not going to hold that against him. It's more of these ball striking numbers that I'm encouraged about seeing. And given the fact that we haven't seen him in a long time, there's no chance he's going to be chalk. I mean, this is somebody who's going to be in the 3 to 4% range in terms of ownership, I would imagine, which is going to make him one of my favorite plays here for this week. Next up, our fifth value play is going to be Aaron Wise at $6,700. We absolutely whiffed on him last time out. Gonna go ahead and take the blame for that one. I thought he was a great play. A lot of other people around the industry did as well. Unfortunately, guy could not hit the ball. He was making putts from all over the place, but his ball striking wasn't there. The one thing going up for Aaron Wise is, if you take a look at the recent metrics, the guy has been on absolute fire, right? The last 24 measured rounds, a little bit diluted by that horrible performance last week. But if you take a look at the last 50 measured rounds, it becomes readily apparent why we want to be playing this guy. I mean, first and foremost, gaining a quarter of a stroke per round on approach, gaining nearly a quarter of a stroke per round off the tee. Around the green, also a very solid player, and the putter has been a neutral. And that's not something we're typically used to seeing from an Aaron Wise. It's why he really took his game to the next level. That's the part of his game that he plugged. And if he can continue to do that going forward, he's going to win a golf tournament this year. I was on record as saying that last time out. Of course, he went out and missed the cut that week, but that doesn't change my outlook on his season. He's still a very high upside player. He'll be at the Honda Classic next week, a golf tournament he almost won last year. And frankly, I compare the Riv and Honda Classic a little bit more than most would. Of course, different grass types, but in terms of the difficulty, the skill set you need to succeed at both golf courses, both major championship type of venues, you got to have around the green, you got to be long off the tee, and of course your approach really has to be top 5 in the field to win. And Aaron Wise, he almost took down that Honda Classic last year. He has the around the green play that we're looking for. The ball striking's always been really solid. Why not here, right? Why not here at this big time event? The Honda Classic was also a big time event. Would not be surprised at all if he went out there and had a solid week. And now lastly, our last value pick, and this doesn't even seem right. How is Mito Pereira $6,600? I mean, one of the best ball strikers in the world when he got out here on tour, but over the last 24 measured rounds, he has been more than an enigma. It's a very strange thing that is going on here with Mito Pereira, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. First off, losing off the tee. What is that all about? How is this guy losing off the tee when he hits it 340 yards? On approach, hardly gaining. Well, what is that all about? He was one of the best ball strikers on tour when he came out here. Around the green, okay, that makes sense. He's always been pretty bad at chipping the ball. The eye test, that's very apparent. He's gaining 2/3 of a stroke per round putting. That makes no sense. When the guy came out on tour, we thought this guy was a horrible putter. We thought that he was just a ball striking type of guy that was going to gain a ton of strokes off the tee, a ton of strokes on approach, and when he gains with the putter every once in a while, is going to go out and win a golf tournament. The opposite is happening right now. And if we take a little bit of a zoom out on his stats, we go into the last 50 measured rounds, you'll see why this is such it's crazy. I don't understand what's going on here. I mean, he's gaining over half a stroke per round on approach. He's getting over a quarter of a stroke per round off the tee. The around the green was actually a little bit better when he first came out here on tour. And of course, the putter was still solid. If he returns to this type of skill set, this is the type of guy that could win this event, let alone be a solid play in the 6K range. So I am all over Mito Pereira this week. I think that some of these recent ball striking numbers have been a little bit fluky at best. I mean, if you watch the guy swing, it's extremely evident that this kid's an absolute stud with the ball striking. So I'm going to be all over him this week. I think the price is just completely thrown off him. He's a top 10 course fit here. Of course, the recent form, we looked at those last 24 measured rounds. It didn't look all that great, but I'm willing to give him a pass, especially what we saw when he first got out here on tour. I mean, the guy posted, 6 straight cuts. It was like 4 top 25s, whatever it was. It was a top 5 at one point. The kid is somebody that we're going to have to keep an eye out for going forward because he's an absolute stud. That's all I've got for this week's value picks. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments before you get out of here what your favorite value on the board is. It doesn't have to be somebody I mentioned during the video. Could be somebody completely off of my radar, but whoever it is, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. As always, going to have our weekly DFS live stream out tomorrow afternoon. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time, covering the weather, our player poll, ownership, your live questions, and more. So make sure to stop by for that. Our fades and sleepers will be coming out this evening after I get ownership calculated and all that fun stuff. And of course, throughout the weekend, we'll have our prize pick shows and our showdown shows as well. So look forward to all of that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any of that content to come. Make sure you like the video if you guys enjoyed this type of content as well. And I'll see you guys next time.